Hello and welcome to Unbounded Growth, a podcast that challenges you to grow and become a better version of yourself. My name is Marc-alain, and together with my friend Adam, we share thoughts and ideas from the books that we read and how they enhance our personal growth and development. We also host other readers and leaders. We learn from their experiences through our discussions. Our episodes air every Tuesday at 6 a.m. Central Standard Time. Thank you for listening in, and let's grow together. Unbounded Growth. Hello, good morning and good afternoon. Thank you for tuning in and listening to us. This is Unbounded Growth. My name is Marc-alain and I'm here with my co-host, Adam Shabindo. How are you doing, Adam?
I'm doing well, Mark. How are you doing?
I'm doing amazing. That's so great to be back here. We were supposed to hear about a week ago, but then something happened. We talked about it toward the end. But as the good old saying goes, all things work together for good. So
absolutely.
I believe that it surely did work together for good. And I'm excited. I'm excited to be back here. Now, I know this is our very first official podcast. This is how we're going to run it. We, first of all, going to tell you a little bit about ourselves. We are going to tell you a little something about why we're starting this podcast and what you can expect to get out of it. And then we talk about our very first book. And every week we expect to review at least a book. And at the end, we tell you a little bit about our donation and where does your money go when you donate it to the Unbounded Growth podcast, and what we need from you and what you'll be learning out of this as you listen to us every week and when we'll be hearing as well. All right, let's start with talking about ourselves. I know it's not too cool to talk about myself, but so I'll let Adam start. Adam, why don't you tell us a little something about yourself?
Yeah, absolutely. I'll be happy to. My name is Adam Shabindo. I am from the Democratic Republic of Congo. I am currently a PhD candidate in biomedical engineering at the University of Texas at Dallas. And I started there in 2021 after getting my master's in mechanical engineering from Texas Tech University. I am also the founder and the CEO of Bora Technology, which is a technology company based in the Democratic Republic of Congo, where we have a goal and a purpose to create a better Africa, to engineer a better Africa through technological development, scientific research, and also education. So we bring end-to-end solutions, but not just forming or inserting technology into the community, but educating the people about the technology we are inserting in the community. And that's a few things. And you get to know me more as we go through this journey together.
There's a lot of interesting facts about Adam. One of them is that he votes Republican and I vote Democrat. But that's just a side note. We usually tease each other about our view. We are a little bit similar, but a lot different in so many areas. As for me, my name is Marc-alain Muteba. One similarity with Adam is that we both grew in the Democratic Republic of Congo. We both grew in the same city, but we didn't know each other. The first time I met Adam, funny story is that, so he tells me his last name. I'm like, where did you live in Goma? He gives me the name of the place where he lived. Like his father is in the army and he's a very famous person in my city. So he gives me the name. I was like, oh, you kidding. You can't possibly be his son. So he tells me, yeah, that's my dad. And find out that, so I tell him my dad's name, he's like, oh no, you can't be, So it turns out that my dad and his dad worked together. My dad was his dad's lawyer, worked together for a few years back in the days. And it's just amazing how, what a small world we live in and how people meet. I'm personally, I'm a father. I like to start with that. I'm a father. I'm a husband. That's definitely my full-time job, taking care of my kid and my wife. One of the most amazing people I've met on earth. And then I'm also a student, getting my MBA from Texas A&M Corpus Christi, with a concentration in data analytics that I'm still reconsidering right now. A lot of things going on around, but other than that, I'm just a regular human being. That's the way I like to define myself. I just enjoy growing and seeing other people grow. And that's a little bit about me. How did we come with this idea about starting this podcast? Do you still remember?
Yeah, I think we were having a conversation one day on leadership. Actually, I came to visit you and we were just having a chat. That was actually long overdue visit. It took a couple of months. And we were having just a conversation. And I was just telling you about my personal development journey that I had just started. I think I was like maybe 2 months into the journey of developing myself, getting to know myself better, going to know what challenges me or what are the other things that I've been ignoring while I'm focusing a lot on science and technology. And then we start having that conversation, and then you're like, which book have you read? And I started giving you names of books, and directly like, oh yeah, I've read that too. And the conversation started there. And then the idea of leadership in our community, and we start seeing things in the news. We started seeing how different things are affecting our communities here in America. And then we start looking at back home in the Congo, different things on how, I think I was having a conversation with you that people are very educated in the Congo, but people have little to no leadership skills. And we started talking about that. We started talking about books on leadership, and we started seeing how can we help? How can we contribute to the growth of our people here and also in the Congo? And the idea of a podcast was born.
And then, it's funny because initially when we started, we thought more about, a more restricted community, like, the Congolese community here and back home. And then we realized one thing in the middle of the conversation was like, no, we're not the only ones struggling with this. We are not the only one that are stagnated or are not moving forward and stuff like that. And Adam started this reading book journey, I think about a year ago, maybe a few months ago. I started mine 10 years ago, and it was funny. English is not my first language. I learned English in Uganda, and a friend of mine, to support my learning, he gave me this book. It was called Gifted Hands by Ben Carson. I read the book, and one statement was so catchy in that book that became the foundation of why I wanted to pursue personal development and personal growth. In the book, Ben Carson says that when his mother started forcing him to read and things of that nature, he said he realized one thing, that if he can read, he can learn anything. And I thought to myself, well, that's amazing. Well, I can read. That means I can learn whatever I want to learn. And I started reading books on leadership, and I've just never been able to stop ever since, Of course, initially growing up in a Christian family and being a Christian myself, reading the Bible, you read it. At first, I was reading it out of duty and things of that nature. But then eventually I started reading and trying to understand and things like that. And it helped me a lot in my personal development. I was actually doing very bad in school, like high school. All my years in high school were not the greatest. But then when I started reading and I started understanding how I learn, there was just this growth, and I could look at my peers and we could have conversation over certain subjects, and I'll just observe the way they're approaching things, and the way I'm approaching things was different. My perspective expanded, and when I met with Adam, I was like, Adam, you know what? I think we need to start this. I think we need not only to talk about books, but also talk about the type of impact that those books are having in our lives. And I can tell you for sure, books have had a magnificent impact in my life. I don't consider myself as a natural leader. The question has always been about leadership. Is a leaders born or made? I think I'm more of a made type of leaders, because I didn't have that inherent influence that, for example, my dad had or my young brother. I think they're natural leaders. I wasn't. But over the years, just learning about leadership by reading books, listening to tapes, watching seminars on leadership has helped me understand how leadership works. And this is just one of the many things that books have done in my life. And we hope that by you joining this, you'll also be learning a lot with us. So, and then why don't you tell us or our listeners, what is it that they can expect as they are listening to us?
They can expect growth from listening to us. That is at least one thing we want to achieve. And that is a continuous growth. And that's why we are calling it unbounded growth in every aspect of their lives. We have different backgrounds as we are having conversations here. One of the things that we have strongly in common is the growth we have all experienced in our respective fields due to the books that we have been reading and the impact that has had on our lives. So one of the things that they can expect is growth. It can be in business. We're going to be sharing a lot of tips that we have experienced after reading. It can be in just regular relationships every day's life. That can be one other thing. It can also be in just personal growth, just you as an individual, as a person. So that is one thing. And at the end of the day, what we are trying to achieve, we are trying to bring the people who listen to us, we are trying to bring them to at least read one book. As Marc said, if you can read, you can learn anything. And we all have a lot to learn. And that's what we are trying to achieve.
Absolutely.
And apart from that, the other thing we're trying to add one sense to is leadership. We need leaders in our communities. Regardless of your background, regardless of the color of your skin, regardless of who you are.
Or who you vote for.
Leadership is important. Leadership on your own life, leadership on your time, leadership on your project, leadership on your relationships, leadership on your family, your school, every aspect of your life, you need leadership. And that's where we are trying to just contribute one sense to that growth in leadership as well.
And that's very important. I like that Adam is covering up a few grounds, all the things that we definitely want to achieve. So it doesn't matter at what stage you are in your life, whether you're just a teenager still in high school or out of high school, or you're just a college graduate, or whether you've been in the industry for so many years. We don't care about the color of your skin, whether you agree with us or disagree with us. Join the conversation. Come, let's get into this growth journey together. Let's learn together and see how much personal development growth can have an impact in our life. Now, how are we going to do this? Our goal is to air all our episodes on Tuesday morning, or morning, like really early morning, maybe 6 or 7 in the morning. So when you commuting to work. Oh, sorry about that. If you're commuting to work, you can still listen to us from your phone, your iPad, and you can find us on a lot of platforms. We talk about that towards the end, where you can listen to us, how you can follow us, how you can learn more about us, and if even the things about how to support us, we tell you more about that toward the end. But the other thing that we would like to encourage you to do is actually to start journaling. Journaling will help you to clarify a lot of your thoughts, making plans, writing things down. And if you don't know where to start, every week we ask you a challenging question, a question that will push you to think, a question that will help you to get your thoughts out of your mind and put them on paper. Maybe one thing I like to call is life by design. Write down everything that you like to achieve, everything, whoever you like to be. If money was not a problem, if time was not a problem, and we talk a little bit more about that, but that's the approach that we are going to have. So every week, ideally, we'll be reviewing at least one book. We talk about the books, the ideas that we learn from the book, and how those ideas are impacting our lives. But something else that we'll be doing as well out of this podcast is we start having some guests as well at some point, where we just talk to them and they will share the experience with us. As a matter of fact, in the future, we have one with Adam in particular, where he's sharing about his idea, how he started with Bora technology and how much impact Bora technology has had in Eastern Congo. His whole journey coming from Congo to here and completing his bachelor's degree within 2.5 years, something very impressive. I don't know if I could ever do something like that. I'm more of the 4 years type of guy. So, we talk about how those things were achieved by him and some of us. And here's the reality. We are just two regular human beings. We don't have any superpowers. We don't have any huge inheritance that was left in our bank account when we grow up. We just go and get it and move on with it. We are just two regular human beings. But we know that with personal growth and personal development, we can definitely achieve anything that we set our mind to, within the limit of logic.
Absolutely.
I always like to add that.
Absolutely. Yeah, I go in the same perspective. I just say, like, as long as they respect the laws of physics.
Exactly.
The laws of nature. You cannot really go,
nature,
you cannot transcend the laws of nature.
Right.
It's the way God set them, and
right.
That's the way they are. So you have to be within the laws of physics.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And so whatever you believe, you can, there's another saying that say, think it, you can achieve it. I don't fully 100% agree with that, but I know one thing for sure. You cannot achieve something you've not thought about.
Yeah,
that's just impossible. There is no way in the world you can achieve anything that you have not talked about, you've not thought about. So we also start encouraging you and working with you on how to develop even good thoughts, on how to develop thoughts that will help you live a happier life, healthier life, and everything that comes in between. I think that's a little bit about our journey, about how we started with books, and one of the reasons why you should listen to us.
Yeah, and that's actually get us to our first book. And this book to me is I get a little bit emotional of the book, because it's the book that introduced me to the path of personal growth.
Right.
I met a guy, his name is Mr. Lindsay. He had a business. He was pitching his business idea. I met him through a friend. He was pitching a business idea where I could work with him in certain business. And I'm very busy, if I can say. Right. I'm getting a PhD. I'm running Bora over in the Congo. And that is just one of the many programs that I'm involved with at the moment. So, but at least I like to hear people out. If somebody comes to me, I don't let opportunity go away. I like to hear and listen to anybody who brings the idea to me. That's just how I am. And I was having a talk with Mr. Lindsay. He was pitching me his idea, and before he told me, like, he's very selective with the type of people he mentors for the business. And we started talking. He told me, okay, do you like reading? I told him I'm not such a big person in reading. And that time, actually, I was going through a lot of struggles, so many issues here and there in my personal life. So it was, even in professional life, struggling with research, everything was just tough. And I told him, I'm not such a big reader, but I would like to start reading. And he told me, okay, there is this small book. It's about 140-page book. It's not that big. And it's called The 12 Pillars by Jim Rohn and Chris Widener. And I asked myself, I was telling myself, well, okay, sure, I can check it out. Mm-hmm. And I went, and at the time I was like, nah, is there any alternatives to reading, right? I'm not what I read.
Right.
140 page, come on, I don't want to read. So, okay, maybe I could listen to the book.
Right.
And I started listening to the book. Just how we start the first chapter, I was like, nah, maybe I should just get also a physical copy of the book. So I started having both the kind of the electronic version of the book and having the actual audiobook. So when I'll be driving, I'll be listening to the book. When I'm home, I can be reading. And it's just, I believe I finished that book in 3-4 days. By the time we got to our next meeting with him, I was done with the book. ready to talk about the 12 pillars
Right.
and inspired to actually, the same day I finished that book, I bought another book by Chris Widener. I bought The Art of Influence.
And I think I got a copy of it here.
Yeah,
I haven't started reading it. I've fallen so much behind in reading.
It's really
But
good book. And
definitely,
he breaks it down into 4 things. Amazing. I went into that book, studied the book, and that's just, now it's now just a positive curve. It's just keep growing and keep reading. And I told myself, where was I all this time? So that's why I'm kind of a little bit biased of this book. I kind of take it more or less personal.
and I remember the first time Adam and I met and we talked about, I was telling him about leadership and, one of the problems that many countries have, particularly the Congo. We personally both know that it's a leadership issue. And we started talking about leadership. And I asked Adam, how long have you been reading? He was like, well, I started about 6 months ago. And I thought to myself, there's no way. Where have you been the whole time? Like you just mentioned, where have you been the whole time? It's always that aha moment that every one of us get when you come across a really, really good book. And Adam told me about this book because I always ask people, do you read? What book do you read? Or how did you start reading that book? And Adam told me about this book. I was like, you know what? I need to pick up that book because I read a book by Jim Rohn, The 8 Secrets of Success, and I loved it. He was like, it's by Jim Rohn and by Chris Widener. I was like, okay, I'm definitely picking up that book. And that book was nothing short of amazing. So the title of the book is The 12 Pillars. The 12 Pillars, I think it's the 12 Pillars of Success, right?
I think it's just the 12
It's just the
pillars.
12
I
pillars.
used to think it was the 12 pillars of success. But
Because
then,
that's what it sounds
it's
like.
really...
The whole book is about, how do you become successful as a
yeah.
person? But deep, it was just about the 12 pillars.
Yeah.
And that's all the book is about. But the story of the book is that Jim Rohn was a great storyteller. And one thing he always says is, if you listen to him on YouTube, there's actually a lot of videos of him on YouTube where he gives a lot of advice on business and things like that. He said something that I always liked. He said, well, if you can't tell a good story, you just need to practice telling good stories. And eventually, you become better.
Yeah.
And he said, well, if you don't become better after a few years, then quit. Do something else, And I always found that a little bit fascinating. So the 12 pillars.
Yeah, so the 12 pillars. As I said, I have kind of a personal attachment to the 12 pillars. I read it for the second time. So you can already imagine how biased I am with the 12 pillars. What I liked to just start off the book is that, okay, for a beginner, a person who doesn't like reading, but I believe most people don't like to read, but they like to watch movies or hear stories.
Exactly.
I remember even the African community, we grew up with our grandmothers, and our grandmothers, like they say, like in Africa, when an older person passes, it's a whole library that burns. They are right, because our whole history wasn't written. Our history was told in stories, in tales, and so on. And so the culture in which we grew, in the tales our grandmother would tell us, there were many people interacting in the tale.
Right.
There was the king here, there was the sorcerers, there was all those people
And
interacting.
it kind of brings it to life.
It becomes real.
You kind of like, you can imagine the characters in your head. And I think that's one benefit of reading over watching a movie. When you're watching a movie, the director of the movie has already set everything. If the girl is wearing a green blouse, it's gonna be green. You can't change it in your mind. But with reading is a little bit different, because when they say, well, he put on his shirt, you can start imagining what kind of shirt it was. And that's one of the beauty of reading.
And that's the thing. So Jim Rohn, in this particular book, they tell a story that it's not just one person lecturing, especially if you're listening to this as an audiobook. Because a lot of audiobooks you listen to, there's just one person narrating, telling you a lot of stories and telling you a lot of things that you have to accumulate. But the way the book is set up for a first-time reader, it's in such a way that it's a conversation between people, like me and Marc-alain here having a conversation, and one person is he's more successful, or he doesn't say he's successful, but he has something to tell,
Right.
or something to pass down to another person to help them be successful in whatever it is they're doing. And they'll just start talking. And the conversation, and it's even funny. You find
It is
some
funny.
part of, like, he literally teasing him here. He's like telling a funny story here, and like even describing the way he walks as an old man and stuff like that. That's kind of just gets you into the book, and you start picturing that, and it's almost playing in your mind as a movie, and it gets you more and more interested. The more I was hearing that book, the more I was reading the book, the more I wanted to just keep going in that rhythm. And that's where I can now just start directly sharing a few things that I got in the from that book.
And I mean, talking about that, I know it's kind of exciting when I can even see your body movement and all that. You can tell about the passion and the thing about the book. And as you say, there are two main characters in the book, and they're just interacting. One of them is kind of close to the end of his life, but doesn't tell his new mentee about his life. And the other one just stumbled upon luck. Just met someone, was at the right place at the right time. And the person started explaining to him the 12 pillars, because in the compound they're talking about, he had 12 pillars. And then, he asked about what are those pillars. And then every week, like a week here, 2 weeks there, he started explaining to him about those 12 pillars. The title of the book is actually just the 12 pillars. But every time I read the 12 pillars, in my head, I'm like, these are the 12 pillars of success, because if you follow those pillars, I think there's no telling to how far you can go, unbounded growth, on how amazing your growth can be. So I'll talk about the first pillar. I'll mention it. Adam will share a little bit some of his experience. I'll share a little bit some of what I learned out of it. The first pillar he talked about, it says personal development. That's the foundation of everything.
Absolutely. Personally, before getting to this, before getting to the 12 pillars, before reading and studying this book, I was at the point where my own personal growth did not matter. I remember one of my professors. I used to be one of the top students in my class for my undergrad, even in my master's class. And one of my professors, Dr. Bhattacharya at Texas Tech University, I took one of his most advanced mathematics class. The class was really hard. And guess what? I did really great in that class. I was one of the top students in the class. And he loved it. We created the relationship after. And then the following semester, I took a class that was a little bit lower than that. And I started working on a lot of things, and my research was also getting advanced. A lot of life challenges also happening. And I'm here creating a lot of excuses and so on. I ended up getting a B in the class. My professor, the way he knew me, he got upset. He asked me, why can you get a B? I got an A on the midterm. How at the end of the semester you're getting a B in the class?
Right. He
told me one thing: Adam, you stop learning. You get comfortable and stop learning. And it's something that really just stayed with me for all these years. And when I started now listening to Jim Rohn and to this book, and I started thinking, why am I not advancing in a way that I want to advance? Why? How do I learn? Is it from the science that I know, from the mathematics? Of course, those are skills you develop by practice. But what am I doing for myself to develop me as a person? And my answer was, I am not doing much. And I was not getting anywhere with my life. I was thinking I was getting somewhere, but everything was just kind of a little bit stagnant.
You see, it's a little bit interesting. The perspective from which you're telling is that you are in school and you have this great realization, because in school, mostly we think that I'm going to school to be educated. That's the goal. But most of us go to school to get a degree or something like that. What you're talking about is more prevalent, especially in the workplace, where you find a lot of people just stuck. I've been at this job for the last 20 years, but when you look at the skills and the things that you have in the industry, they are no longer relevant for your industry. I remember I worked with one lady. She had been at a job for it would be over 10 years. And she was struggling to move away from a job she hated because she no longer had the skills that are required in the industry. And having that realization about, what am I doing for myself, about myself, my personal development, is very, very crucial.
Absolutely. And Jim Rohn says one thing in that first part. He said that work on yourself more than you work on your job. And that started hitting me every time. That was poking me. What am I doing? What am I doing? How am I learning? How am I different from who I was yesterday? What challenges me? Am I getting comfortable? Am I going into my comfort zone? And I realized that into my research. I got to a point where, I picked a project that I was comfortable with. I already knew pretty much everything. I already knew all the expectations. I already knew what the result's going to look like. I was not even doing science anymore because I was just trying to repeat the same stuff I had been doing. No innovation whatsoever. And then after that, I started now looking at, what is the next paper in my field that I can read that can make me different? The way we are trained as engineers, we are trained as problem solvers. And inspiration doesn't magically come.
Right.
There is something that my boss, UT Dallas, she mentioned this as well. It's called extrapolation. And how does extrapolation happen? You go to a conference, you attend a seminar, you read a book, you read a paper, it stays in your head, the knowledge, or it stays vaguely in your head because you read, you pass, and you had a conversation with somebody, you pass.
Right.
You're gone. And then you will just be sitting somewhere and something hit you. It's no magic that hit you.
Right.
And now you start thinking about these different connections in your field. And now it becomes the next big technology. How did that happen?
Right.
It's because you went and read somewhere that you forgot that you even read that. You had a conversation with somebody at a conference about something. You've forgotten about it. And now your mind keep on extrapolating. And after it extrapolates, it comes up now with this brilliant thing that, no, it did not come out of magic. Right. You did not guess. You were not lucky. It's just the passive knowledge that were in your mind. They build up together, created the connection, and directly, boom, you have something. That's the power of personal growth to me.
And I think that they talk about some other researchers or coming from a different field talk about the subconscious mind. When you have things sitting in your subconscious mind, you are passively thinking about them without putting your thoughts to it. But the only way to get those ideas in your mind is to look for ideas. I think ideas are born out of ideas.
Absolutely.
It's like someone had something and someone else has something. Your idea may just be the connection between those two major ideas. So the first pillar of success that, the first pillar, I keep on saying first pillar of success, but the first pillar that Jim Rohn and Chris Widener talk about is personal development. Personal development is so crucial. There's one quote that starts the book. It says, the only way things are going to change for you is when you change. And there's so much truth in that one statement that when I realized that, Dr. Ben Carson talking about if I can read, I can learn anything. One of the reasons why I struggle a lot in school after, meditating and thinking about my life, I realized that I didn't spend a lot of time learning. I didn't spend enough time studying as I should. I didn't spend enough time doing the things that I was supposed to do. And the direct consequence of that was that I was not doing good in school back in the days when I was still in high school. But then when I started realizing that, of course, my grades are not going to change, or my work is not going to change, or my life is not going to change until I start changing my habits, my routine, or the things that I do. For instance, if you spend too much time on TV, why would you complain that you're not doing well at your job? If the 4 hours or the 5 hours that you spend watching TV, you could spend them investing into your personal development, learning more about your job, learning more about your school, doing more research than you can do. I think you can make a lot of progress. I think Jim Rohn talks about it a lot in his book, The 8 Secrets of Success, that we review as well in the future. He says, well, you can complain all you want about how your job is tough, your manager is terrible, this and that. If you don't like where you are, move. You're not a tree.
Mm-hmm.
And the only way to move, you gotta have the ability to move. You gotta have the capacity to move. Personal development is so important that I once read a story. Back in the days, when there was no LinkedIn or anything of the nature, there was this manager. He came to work every day with a few journals in his hand, and he had 3 direct reports. He would hand them one journal, and he'd tell them, look at the job section. So they flip the journal pages and look at the job section. It's like, okay, if this company was to close today, would you qualify for any of those jobs? He said, if your answer is no to that question, that means you need to do something about your life. You're probably not doing enough. You're probably not learning enough. And I think it's very important, very challenging, a challenge that we can set ourselves to. What is it that you are doing for your personal development? Because nothing in your life will change until you do.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And that's the first pillar of success that he mentioned. And that's, to me, I take it personally because as we mentioned earlier, that we won't be doing a review of a book, but we're going to be taking what's in that book had a direct impact on us, so we can invite you to also take on the path. Because one thing that I realized, one key takeaway from my entire personal growth journey and all the reading that I've been doing is that before, I used to ignore other people's experiences. I used to think they have nothing to do with me, and I would prove it to myself, both in philosophy. I'll talk about subjectivity, where I'm like, yes, whatever you're going through is very subjective. It's you and only you. We cannot, like, if you read a lot of French existentialists, they would tell you about subjectivity. Even Nietzsche would just tell you that it's you. It's only you that is experiencing that. It's what you feel. And I cannot really relate. Even if we are going through the same thing, it's not the same.
Right.
But after reading those books, I started realizing more and more that, I can relate to what other people are going through. And that's actually pushed me now to, let me read more. Let me grow more. And it all started with personal development pillar by Jim Rohn.
And the question is always like, how do I develop myself? Well, we can give you a few tips, a few things that I personally do to develop myself. Adam, we also talk about it. Of course, the first one is reading books. And if you can't read books, you don't have enough time to sit down and flip pages, which I believe everybody has enough time to do. At least one book a year. At least, at the very least, one book a year. I'll encourage you to do one a week, if possible, with your time. And you can accomplish that if you only spend 45 minutes a day reading a book. You can finish one book every week. But one of the things that for your personal development that you can do to help you is to invest an hour of your time in the field in which you want to grow. I'll explain myself. If, for example, you're trying to learn to play guitar, invest an hour playing guitar every day. And researchers have proved that if you spend an hour doing one thing every day, for example, if you spend an hour practicing your guitar every day, in 5 years, you will become an expert at it. Or whether it's PhD research, whether it's, it's school or work. If you spend an hour in your job, for example, let's say you're in finance and you deal a lot with the stock market and all that. If you spend an hour every day learning about the stock market, learning about trading and all that, within 5 years, you become an expert in your field. And it's not just about becoming the expert in your field, it's what that transformation of personal development does to you. The second thing I always suggest to people, you can spend a lot of time on YouTube doing a lot of nothing, but you can also spend a lot of time on YouTube learning. YouTube is practically today a free university given to you with no tuition, as long as you pay for your internet, or you can sit next to a free Wi-Fi that you can connect to. Watch videos on YouTube. Watch videos in your area, in the area in which you want to develop yourself. So those are my 2 tips, personal, like reading books and watching a lot of videos on YouTube. You learn a lot.
What I can add to that is that attend seminars.
Yep.
I invite people all the time to us. I meet people at the porch because I attend the porch in Dallas. And I meet people at the porch and we have a conversation. I'm like, hey, like especially people in my field. I'm like, yeah. Hey, last time we had somebody in our seminar, he talked about such a topic. If you can attend the next seminar, maybe you can learn something from him. Attend those seminars. Listen to other people's opinion. The other thing is learn from the best.
Right.
Find the person who is really good. I was talking to you earlier today that I had a meeting with my friend. His name is Justin. Justin is, to me, he's not just a friend, but he's also a role model in whatever it is that he does. He signs really these amazing deals. He does all these amazing things in the Congo. He's doing what I want to do. And what do? I get really close to Justin and we have a conversation, just a chat with Justin. I'll get inspired. And from them, I'm developing myself from just hearing from Justin. And there are many others out there that I learn from, that I hear from. And when somebody is the best at what they do, they want to share. And that's where I learn from.
I have a friend who lives in Zambia. He always says that people are open books. And we all have something to share. As long as you are willing to learn, you can always learn something from someone. So definitely the first pillar, personal development, is a must. This is how you start this journey. So plan your growth and invest in your growth. Invest in your growth. I think Brian Tracy talks about investing 10% of your income in your personal growth. And when you're earning 10,000, 10% of it, like $1,000 every year, should go into your personal development, whether he's getting another degree or buying more books or having a financial coach or some of that nature. Having talked about that, what was the second period that Jim Rohn and
he talked about self-care in kind of a full perspective, and it's something that I learn a lot from. When he talked about self-care, he talked about a full, well-rounded health, not just health, but he talks about soul, he talks about body, and he talks about spirit. And those 3 things are in accord, in connection with each other. And even from the biblical teaching for Christians, is that those 3 things are in accord with each other. They are not one, but they're in accord with each other. And what I'm saying the accord is that if there's a default in one of them, there is certainly an issue to your own success. So if your soul is not well, if you're not taking care of your soul, there is an issue that you're going to come and face. If you're not taking care of your body, if you are not being mindful of what you eat, if you are not being mindful of what is coming in you, what you are consuming, and that's for your spirit, and your spirit is fed by reading and all the knowledge that you're getting. Right. If you are not being mindful of what you eat, the problem gonna be with the outcome that is coming out of you. And that's, I think I'm picking that from the Bible, that is saying that it's not what comes in, it's not what you see or what you hear that defiles you, is what is coming out of that's going to defile you. Right. So what you eat, what you consume, both in your soul, in your spirit, and in your body, is directly what you're going to become. And that is what I got from this pillar.
And I think that's very important about talking about the consumption. I'll read just a little paragraph from here. It says, sure, we have our bodies, that's obvious, but we also have our soul, which is basically our intellect and our emotions, also our will. And then we have our spirit, that the part of us that transcends this world. It is the part that's designed to be eternal. The fact is, most people pick one of those three and work on them in that area. But Mr. Davis thinks we need to work on each area because they're interdependent. Here's the reality. I find that statement very true as to what we do as human beings. We pick one part and we decide to work on it. Today, in this society, we are finally starting to talk about mental health, which something in the past was something that people didn't care about. You went to the factory, you work hard, you came back home. You had no time to complain. You had no time to do anything because it's just your body. You just have to work hard. We never saw the impact that harsh words or critics or bad critics, I'm talking about bad critics, or discouragement could have in our mental health. People staying at some dead-end job that they hate with their human life. They don't want to be at that place, but they're staying there simply because they feel like they're compelled to stay there. And the mental repercussion of that were much greater than anything that we ever thought about. Our bodies, it's sometimes something we greatly neglect. Is because we always think, it's my body, I can do with it whatever I want. Even talking about the issues that we face in this country, like obesity and things of that nature. The problem is when we don't take care of our bodies, there's only so many things you can accomplish in this life without your body. As a matter of fact, when you're no longer in your body, when you die, you can no longer use your body to do what you wanted to do. And last I checked, I haven't seen a dead person walking around here and telling me what to do. Your body is like your vessel, and we need to take great care of it in terms of what we consume. And I like what you mentioned about food consumption, but also, most importantly, a point that I wanted to emphasize on is what we consume intellectually. I think it's very important. What do we feed our minds with? The type of TV shows that you watch, the type of books that you read, or the type of people that you listen to. One of the issues that we are having recently in the United States of America is having too many radicals. We have a radical right, we have a radical left. And with all the algorithm that goes on in the internet or your Facebook or your Instagram, they keep feeding you stuff that you like the most. So if you're leftist, all the posts that you see is about the left. If you're rightist, all the posts that you see is about the right. And at some point you think that everybody agrees with you, but the reality is that they probably don't. So what you consume intellectually is important. That's why I encourage people, be friends with people you disagree with, people you don't share the same opinion with. Because, again, what you consume has a direct impact on who you become, and that's very important.
Absolutely, absolutely, and that is the second pillar that he mentioned in this book, and the third one.
It's kind of related to it.
Really, really related. The third one over here, that's to me again, I took it as dearly because it's something that directly has impacted my life, and I've watched over, and that is say he looked at the relationship as a blessing, all the relationship that you have, and he said like if you have relationships in your life, invest in them. He said it's like a garden. As he talked a story in the big mansion in the that they had over there, he was taking care of the garden and the flowers and so on, and he said that for you to have a flourishing or a very beautiful garden, 3 things are required: time, effort, and imagination. You'll be surprised how far those 3 things can go in relationships wise. I'm a type of person who I like talking to people. I like developing friendships, talking to different people, and I like talking to people. I like just having really, really good and deep conversation with people. And one thing that I've realized in those conversations is the question of time. The more time you put into something, the more you invest in that relationship, is the more you get out of it. The other thing is the effort. It's not just, okay, I am there and I am stagnant. My presence there has nothing to do with anything that I'm doing. Now, the effort that you are putting is very important, and the effort in the right direction. And the right direction of the efforts that he mentions over here is imagination. He says that to have a good relationship, to have a good garden, okay, you put the time inside first. Then you put a lot of effort, so you're fixing, you are very active. And the third thing, imagination. Coming up with stuff. Like just with my friends, hanging out with friends. Okay, you make the time for somebody, you make the efforts, and then you start making imagination, having plans. Like, hey, why don't we have dinner once a month? And we start having that with my friends. We'll be hanging out, like, I believe last month, we had this dinner and we just call each other, get some time, get together, hang out. And the time here, he talks about not just quality time. He say that both quality time and quantity time.
They're important.
They're important.
Yeah.
Because people think like, oh yeah, we just meet once a year. And yeah, every time we meet, yeah, if we get along really well, we talk really well. It's really tough to actually have an entire life summary for you to know so much about somebody by just spending one day in a year.
And it's not even the whole day. You spend a few hours.
With them. And it's a problem. And if you want to take care of a relationship, and this is any type of relationship. In fact, something funny actually about this, it's also something that I realized with my work, my research. I see my technology as a relationship. It's funny enough, but I see my PhD work as a relationship. And one of my bosses before, when I was doing my master's, he said, Adam, you see the device you just developed there? It's like having a girlfriend, man. You have this girlfriend of yours, and okay, you spent so much effort with to get that girlfriend. And now the girlfriend is there, but then you just spend 30 minutes with her and then you're gone. And then tomorrow you spend another 30 minutes and then you're complaining that the relationship is not working. He said the technology you are making is your baby, man. You put in so much effort. Now what you need, put in the time. Create the experiments, and that's the imagination part. And all of those things, I kind of linked directly to what he's mentioning here, and they've pushed both my career forward, because after I finished this book, I got my first result at work. Very first, I had spent 7 months at UTD with nothing major except for the design, but now I had something that worked, and I took a video. I was like, man, this is amazing. And then after that, in my personal relationships with my friends, just calling them and hanging out, like, hey, let's go bowling, or let's do this. And sometimes, okay, we grow, we think we're adult, of course, and we outgrow those type of things. We think when I was in college, I had time, I had so and so, and we come up with all these many excuses. No, they shouldn't be there, because at the end of the day, whatever occupation that you have is not really what's gonna sustain you in the end. There's a say back home that it is not your wealth or your occupation or your money that's gonna bury you. It's gonna be the people around you that's gonna bury you.
And that's very important. I think you know, talking about coming from a perspective of having a girlfriend or a partner. My wife and I, we got married last year, and I started quickly realizing that quality time is great, but quantity time is very crucial. Because even the example he gives in the book about how this man is talking about his relationship and how things, they got married, kids came into the picture, and things started slipping away. It's very easy fall into that in marriage. It's very easy to just take things for granted, to think that, this is not worth it. Why am I investing my time in this? So, we already married. What else do we have to do? It's important to create time, to really create the time and create those memories that sustain those relationships. And the other thing that's also important when it talks about relationship, and even in my personal life, is who do you spend time with? Sometimes you need to have a hard check. Listen, I love everybody. I think, I honestly can say I don't have enemies. I mean, if people consider me as an enemy, I don't think I consider anybody as my enemy. I love people. I genuinely love people. But I'm also admit that I do not spend my time with everybody. I'm very selective about who I spend my time with. I love people. We have great time with people. But if a person is going to occupy 6 hours out of my day, then I really want to know who that person is. I really want to know what type of relationship I have with that person. I believe, this is a personal belief, I don't think it talks about it in the book, but I believe we meet people for 2 reasons, or maybe 3. The third one, it's debatable, but I think we meet people for 2 reasons. Either we meet them to learn from them, or we meet them so they can learn from us. And the third reason is that so we can learn from each other. That's an obvious one. But the first 2 is that when you're investing your time in somebody's life, those who are close to retirement, to quitting their jobs and stuff like that, maybe it's time to pick up a youngster and invest in his life and start raising him up. And those who are in their early careers, maybe it's time to look up to someone and let that person pour into your life. But who you spend your time with, a lot of times, will determine as well where you go in life. If you only spending your time with people that are negative, or people that are sexist, or people that have a certain opinion, I don't know if you've noticed, but most people that we tend to hang around with are people that think like us, maybe go to the same schools as we do, or maybe have the same opinion as well, or vote the same colors as we do. So it's very crucial to look at your surroundings and look, is your life right now a direct impact of the people that you're spending time with?
Absolutely. And that's that actually brings us to even the 6th pillar in this case, because I'm trying to go based on what those pillars have had, what type of effect have had on me. It's surround yourself with the best people.
And we go back to the 4th and the 5th pillar.
Yeah, we'll go back. We'll go back to those eventually. But when you look now at the 6th pillar, and there is something that I really liked over here, that he said that we are actually free. We have freedom and responsibility to associate, basically. We can associate with whoever we want. We can let people go. And I have always had this talk with my friend, and it's funny. I learned, actually, I took this from my little brother, Goel. And we're just having a talk. Actually, no, he was making a joke because Goel jokes around all the time. But I picked that and I took it seriously. He was saying that, he was telling all our friends, because me and my little brother were very close. So we are really good friends as well. Right. And we also share the same group of friends. But he was making a joke and say, okay, in 5 years from now, if you are still where we are today, we won't be friends anymore.
Right.
And that's just as simple as it is. Regardless of the background, where you're from, the color of your skin, anything. 5 years from now, if you're still at the same level as you were 5 years ago, and you see your friends that have advanced and they've become better people, jealousy sets in. So many adversity that it becomes a problem to be friends with people because some people don't move forward. And that is one thing and I pick my environments very wisely, very wisely. I don't just hang out with anybody, right? And it's kind of I think we're discussing one day, we're having a conversation, that we can sit around with you for 4 or 5 hours and we are not getting tired. We keep on talking and having a conversation and keep on going. And nobody's getting bored.
Right.
But the same type of talk, I'll bring it to another crowd, to another group of people.
And it's a different energy.
They're not interested.
You know.
And then I start feeling to myself, I'm like, oh yeah, I don't fit within the category of people who want to talk about growth. They want to talk about, it can be finances. They want to talk about great relationships. Not everybody want to talk like, especially the guys around my age, and also being of a Christian faith. Around my age, everybody thinking to get married. And I want to get married too. But at the same time, I don't want it to be the hottest topic all the time.
An end goal.
An end goal. Yeah,
like,
exactly.
Okay, so you get married, then what? You know, like, you know, we have this shallow idea about marriage. It's like, okay, if marriage is an end to itself for you, then I can confidently say that you're not ready for marriage. If marriage is an end goal in itself for you, you're not ready for it, because you get married, then what? Life still has to move on. And I like what Jim, Rohn, and Chris Wheeler say here. They say you place every person you meet into 3 different categories: disassociation, limited association, and expanded association.
Yep.
Trust me, here's the reality. There are some people you meet in life, you just shouldn't be with them. As simple as that. I love you, but no, I'm not going to spend my time with you. You don't ever want to find yourself with the wrong people in the wrong place. Because those are the type of people I'm saying that where you need to disassociate yourself with, in a sense where if the person is doing something fundamentally wrong, the person is a serial killer, for example, you don't want to associate yourself with a person like that unless you're associating with them in a sense of helping them. And so many times people find themselves in abusive relationship. I'm not just talking about marriage or a courtship or whatever you call it. Even friends where they're abusing each other mentally, they're abusing each other physically, simply because you are hanging around the wrong people. So it's very, very crucial to pick the type of crowd that you hang around with. Even at work, and at work is even more important. You want to be successful? Be friends with everybody. Talk to everybody. But when it comes to your time and how you spend your time with people, spend time with people who are doing the things that you want to do. And I think you talked about your friend Justin, about how just spending time with him and sharing ideas and learning about the things that he's telling you can actually bring and birth some new ideas in your mind. And it's easy to, I'll tell you, want the wrong crowd that you don't want to spend all your time with. The type of crowd that always talks about people. They are always sharing about who has the latest news about this girl or this boy, about the conflicts that they're having. Yes, but what does that help you? How does that help you? You know, what does that help you to achieve or to accomplish? Meet with people who challenge you, people who push you to become better, but also meet with people that you can help become better. But at some point, there's only so much control you can have over other people. The only control that you have 100% of the time is control over you.
And that's going to bring me to the challenging question that I am going to leave people with on this particular pillar, is that, do you leave your friend inspired? Every time you go meet with your friend, every time you hang out, every time you go to a party, every time you just are with the boys or you hang out with the ladies or the girls, do you leave them inspired? That is a challenging question that I'm going to be leaving you with.
And as a matter of fact, just make a list of all the people you consider friends and wonder, do you leave them inspired? Or do you inspire them when you part ways? Yeah. Do they leave you inspired? When they leave you, are they inspired? And do they want to spend more time with you? All right, ladies and gentlemen, it is with this question that we'll be leaving you today. The recording of our first episode was a little bit longer than 2 hours, and Adam and I decided to split it into 2 parts. The second part will be airing next Tuesday around the same time. We want to express our gratitude to those of you already following us and supporting us financially. If you like this episode, please do not hesitate to subscribe to Unbounded Growth on the platform you're listening to. It really does go a long way for us. Consider also following us on Instagram and YouTube. And if you'd like to consider supporting us financially, a donation page can be found on our anchor.fm page. The link will surely be in the description. Your donation go a long way towards supporting the kids' education in the Congo. Eventually, we also want to create some scholarship funds here in the United States. Furthermore, it also will help us continue running this podcast. Please give us your feedback, your suggestions. They'll be greatly appreciated. And until next Tuesday, have a wonderful week. And may God bless you.